Welcome. If you've clicked on the play button, obviously we're talking about something you want to hear about. Talking about matching BPMs. It's kind of an essential tool you need as a DJ because if you can't match two records, maybe you should try radio. The Glee Club's always open. Chess Club. Any? No. BPMs, tempos, booms and paps, boots and cats, whatever you call it. We're here to match them. My name is DJ E-Clyps, and this is Sweetwater, and we're teaching you how to match your BPMs. Here's a little Sweetwater DJ history for you. At one point in time, you had two turntables, headphones, and your ears, and that was what you used to match your BPMs. Nowadays, you have some other luxuries that you can afford to use, but sometimes it helps to start with the basics, and that's what we're here for. If you're learning to mix by ear, that's fine. In the meantime, if you don't feel comfortable, there is always the option to sync your records. In most DJ Controller software, there is going to be a beat sync or a smart sync function that enables you to automatically lock those two tempos together to make your transitions easier. However, you still want to pay attention to those because sometimes those beat grids don't exactly lock the way they want to. So be careful that even when you use sync, to still use your ears. The reason why we're getting into this because newer records are really properly gridded to the point where they're going to lock. If you start mixing in like old funk, breakbeat, disco records, those were played with live drummers in real time, and those tempos fluctuate. So if you don't know how to match those BPMs by ear, you can find yourself in a really odd situation where that record starts to drift or switch time, and now you're stuck. So that's why it's kind of important to learn this format, so that way it makes you a more diverse, more educated, more prepared DJ. So the concept of BPMs is basically you have one record that's at one tempo, you have another record that's at another tempo. How do you make those two meet? Well, that's where your pitch fader comes in. Your pitch fader is going to go from your slowest tempo to your faster tempo, and you can dial those in by using your ears, or you can look at the screen in your DJ software and you can see where those BPMs match, but don't trust it. So quick navigation around your DJ console. You have your playing deck, you have your pitch faders, you have your pitch bend plus or minus, and you have your volume knobs for each deck, and you have your crossfader. So there's two different ways to mix this. You can mix it by either using the volume faders, or you can mix it by using the crossfader. Now, here's a tip with the crossfader. You want to make sure that you're checking your gain staging for both records before you slide that crossfader across, because if you don't, and those levels aren't evenly matched, you're gonna go from either one soft song to a really loud one, or a really loud song to a really soft one, which can also affect your mix. So before I pull this record up, if we look here, this is gonna be your peak meters for this track. So what you wanna do is you kind of want to set your gains so that way you're about the same volume level. Because if you have one that's cranked up like this and one down like that, and you cross over, you've got a problem. Also on the layout, you're going to have your cue buttons. So your cue button is going to be basically the one that's playing on this deck. You're going to want to cue the other record so that way you can hear it before you push that volume level up. So if I'm mixing this record into this one, I'm going to activate this cue. If I'm playing this record and I'm mixing in this one, then I'm going to switch my cue over here. And those are important because this way you can hear how everything's going to sound before you push that volume up, because once you pull it up, you can't take it back. One way of matching your BPMs is by using the platter style. And that is basically, in the days of turntables, your record will be playing and you could kind of either slow it down or pitch it up with your finger as you were adjusting your pitch, so that way you can start to lock your tempos together. What they did is now you have the pitch bend plus and minus at the bottom. And what that does is as you play this record, you still get the same effect of either speeding up or slowing down your record to match your tempos. One DJ tip I always advise DJs who are starting out on beat matching is load up two copies of the same record. Let one play and then practice mixing the other one in and then mixing the other one out. And then let that record play and then mix it back in and mix it back out. Because that way, if you have two of the exact same records, it kind of helps you formulate a gauge of beat matching your records together. Now, if you're not completely confident in hitting that start-stop button on time, you can always set your hot cue to your downbeat, or some people prefer to start it off with a snare. Either way it goes, you can set your hot cues up so that way while the record's playing, if you mess up, you can go back and start over. So if I wanted this cue point to be at the snare, so I can either start on a downbeat or I can start off the snare, either or. But that's what you can use your hot cues button for if you're not really familiar with using the start and stop. So we're gonna mix 2 records in together the way that I like to do them in certain sets, and that's by using the volume faders, because sometimes when you use that crossfader, it can be a really sharp adjustment. When you mix with the volume faders, it gives you a much smoother transition to ease in a record and to ease out of a record. And we're gonna give an example of that right now. So we have your first beat playing. Now, I'm gonna hit Q on this deck. So now I'm hearing the deck, but you're not. And now I'm gonna adjust my pitch meter to match the tempos. Now I'm gonna bring it in. See, we got a little drifty, so we're gonna pull the pitch bend back. Now we're matched. So now I can pull this out. See, and that's how you transition between 2 records. It's a smoother transition. So what you can do now to really build your practice chops up is the record that you mixed out. Now you can mix that same record back in. So now you've just mixed in one record and then mixed back in that other record. So a good way to really get your mixing chops together is to just take a set of records, like maybe 2 records that you like, or 2 of the same record, and just practice mixing those records back in and back out, back in and back out, and back in and back out. And that will help you acclimate your ear to not only just looking at your BPMs, but matching them by ear. So whether that's by using the kick drum or by the snare drum, adjusting your volume sends, making sure that your gain staging is right, all those things matter. So by practicing this is not something you want to practice on the fly in a live environment. You really want to take the time in your own personal moments and practice these exercises. If you're not into the really heavy mixing stuff, you can really just do a hard stop, break, cut over, which is kind of really familiar if you're more into like the hip hop sets or things of that nature, where you really just have a really quick transition. You're not trying to do a slow blend like you would do with more electronic music, trap music, things of that nature. So you just want a cold break crossover. So then you're going to do the same principle where you're going to let this record play. And we're going to mix in the other record as usual. Still matching your tempo, but it's a quicker transition. So it's much quicker. You're not doing a lot of fades. It's just a smooth crossover. But what happens is, if your tempos aren't right and you switch it over, that is called a train wreck. That's what you don't want to do. So you really want to make sure that you're committing to that mix before you switch it over. Whether you're easing it in or whether you're doing a hard drop, you really want to make sure those BPMs are airtight. And that takes practice. I can't emphasize enough, in your spare time, practice, practice, practice. I remember when I first learned to DJ, I used to practice for about 4 to 8 hours a day, years before I got my first gig. So don't think that it's as easy as just grabbing a bunch of records and crossing them over. It really could set you up for a bad situation. Make sure you practice. Commit a lot of practice. So another technique, when you're talking about matching BPMs, And I know we talked about this in another video, and now it's moving from one tempo set to another tempo set. So let's say we're at like 120, and now you want to slow it down a bit, and you want to transition to like a 60 BPM to really kind of break down your set and start over, and just really go into a different vibe. It's a little bit trickier because now you got to do that math. You got 120 over here, you have 60 over here. How are you going to accomplish that? 120, 60. You want to see how that sounds right now. So now we're at half tempo on one, double on the other. And then you just cut out. Now you just transition from an up-tempo set to a down-tempo set, but even still, you notice that matching your BPMs is really important when you do that. Sorry about that. But that's how you're gonna do it. All right, so matching BPMs becomes really important, especially when you get into your hip-hop sets and your trap sets, because you don't have as many breaks to mix that in. So you got a short period of time, so you gotta lock it in, you have to do it fast, and we're gonna give you an example of, once again, going from an up-tempo, transitioning to a down-tempo. So we just transitioned from an up-tempo set to a down-tempo set by having that BPM. So remember, if you have like 120 over here, you're gonna divide that in half, so you're gonna have 60. So if you're at 140, where are you gonna go? Leave it in the comments. I'm not gonna tell you the answer. So that's how you're gonna do it. That's a beat mix transition from an up-tempo to a down-tempo. DJing is one of those things like it's in any other instrument. It requires a lot of practice. It requires to feel your way around and really get familiar with your product. So always know that your pitch fader may be on this side. It may be at the top. It may be on the side. Your pitch bend buttons that are available to you, your volume faders, your cross faders, your Q gains, all these things are going to be navigated in different places depending on the controller or the mixer that you're using. So please consult the DJ Controllers 101 video that we made earlier, or definitely go and look into your user manual, RTFM. Read the freaking manual. These things will help you, because no matter if you've just started or whether you're seasoned, there's always something to learn, there's always something to expand upon, and there's always something to build into your repertoire. So please practice, practice, practice. Let's be honest, the DJ world, like any other world involved in music or any form of art, you're going to have hardcore criticisms, naysayers, people that have to add their opinions as to how you should do something. But at the end of the day, do what feels good and comfortable for you. Don't let the internet pressure you into feeling that if you start with sync, that makes you a horrible DJ, or if you only mix this way, it makes you a better DJ than the other. Mix in a way that's comfortable and build to a point where you're comfortable, but don't let others dictate that direction for you. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you've been DJing for a while and you got a lot of salt in your seasoning, leave a comment. Let others learn from your years of sage knowledge, because my way is not the only way. There's millions of ways. Let's put them in the comments and be nice about it. All right? I'm trusting you. Okay. If you have any questions about this Rane One DJ controller that we use in this demo, or any other DJ products, please feel free to go to visit the website, sweetwater.com, for all your music instrument and pro audio needs. And if this content is helping you, do not forget to like and subscribe. And then we'll just keep supplying you with all this wonderful goodness so that you can grow and be great. Join us. Get us in your system. All right? Peace out.